as we predicted last week, we have some huge updates to the Israel-Lebanon situation today. Starting with late last night, you had IDF troops crossing the border into Lebanon in what they described as a limited and localized ground operation to take the fight to Hezbollah. And that coming after a night of brutal strikes across Lebanon that killed more than 100 people, which makes the number over the past 2 weeks 1,000 dead and 6,000 wounded. With outlets describing last night's actions as an invasion, though you had Israeli officials trying to downplay the assault, with them pointing out that Israeli troops have done many incursions into Lebanon over the past year, with those generally done by special forces, which have conducted at least 70 raids during that time. But apparently it's also been done by normal troops on over a dozen occasions. And all of this drawing a lot of criticism from many, including commentators like Hassan Piker, who has long been critical of Israel's actions in the region, writing on Twitter, Israel has packaged all its illegal occupational actions, including apartheid in the West Bank and genocide in Gaza, by claiming self-defense. America hasn't restrained Israel at all since early October, and now it's, quote, self-defending by moving to overtake southern Lebanon once again. But this is Israeli officials have their own version of why they're invading, saying it's not to reoccupy southern Lebanon like they used to before 2006. Instead, saying it's to enforce Resolution 1701, which, if you've never heard of, put an end to a short war with Israel and Hezbollah back in 2006, with both sides agreeing to withdraw from a specified area that created a buffer between the so-called Blue Line border on Israel's north and the Litani River in Lebanon. And instead, 17,000 UN troops, as well as the official Lebanese army, would be put there to keep the peace and help people back into their homes. However, despite Israel agreeing to leave southern Lebanon, Hezbollah has pretty much ignored the resolution completely, with Israel claiming this allows the group to easily launch missiles into Israel from just across the border, with one official even claiming, quote, we've seen attempts of Hezbollah to infiltrate Israel. In some cases, one of our brigade's deputy commanders was killed, and this is something that they have been planning for years. With the IDF also showing footage of alleged Hezbollah tunnels that go across the border, alongside accusations that Hezbollah planned to massacre Israeli civilians like Hamas did. So at least officially, Israel's goal is to get Hezbollah back across the Litani River and to stay there as a non-threat to Israel, which you have people saying is a notable difference from what it wanted in Gaza. Right there, it vowed to eradicate Hamas, but we'll also have to wait and see if Israel's goals change as its operations continue, because a lot of people don't believe that Israel will stop at this stated goal. And all of this comes as Israel has largely decapitated Hezbollah's leadership, including now its elusive leader who was at the group's underground bunker complex in Beirut. Though despite the early successes of Israel's operation, Hezbollah hasn't just been sitting around. Right? They've conducted rocket strikes across the border and hit many Israeli towns. Though the biggest fear is what Iran will do, because they are a major supporter of Hezbollah and they've had operatives working with the group in Syria for years now. And I mean, today we started off reporting that the US fears that a missile attack from Iran was imminent, with them even warning that embassy personnel and their families needed to shelter in place until further notice. So Israel originally pushed back on this, with an IDF spokesperson saying, as of this moment, Israel does not perceive an imminent threat from Iran. But then, as we were filming the show, they switched their tune, with Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari warning that a large-scale attack was imminent and for citizens across the country to shelter in place, with it then taking about 10 minutes for the missiles to travel from Iran to Israel. And it was clear that this attack was much bigger than the few strikes Iran sent back in April. And while information's still coming in, because this is developing as we're making the show, right now it looks like Iran sent over 100 intercontinental ballistic missiles into Israel, which is a really important distinction because these are generally much faster than the rockets Hamas sends in, and it's a real stress test for Israel's Iron Dome. Based on reports, it seems like Tel Aviv was the target, and the footage is insane, right? There are waves after waves of missiles falling into the city, some of which seem to be destroyed, but it's hard to confirm. However, explosions were also heard, making it clear that some at least struck the city. And it's just that as we're recording, we don't know the extent of the damage or how many people were killed in the strike. And so, of course, all of this marking a very, very clear escalation of the hostilities between Israel, Hezbollah, and Iran, which is why we've seen so many people taking this seriously. I mean, even before the attacks, the US and UK had troops on high alert in the region. And now since Iran's attack, Biden and Harris have met to discuss the situation on how to move forward. And as for Israel, it is now widely expected that they will retaliate, and former Israeli ambassador to the US, Michael Oren, is on CNN saying there are no facilities, including nuclear facilities, that are immune from an Israeli response. And so it currently feels like there's no reason to think that things will not continue to escalate. And specifically regarding that, within Lebanon, the big question is what will Lebanon's actual army do, and whether Hezbollah will actually try to dig in and fight or just move behind the Litani River. And then, of course, within Iran, everyone's going to be on edge to see how Israel responds. And again, this is all developing in real time, so we're going to have to wait to see what happens next.